The prison ship Grather floated in the deep, silent space beyond the known worlds. It looked like a giant metal whale, drifting between stars. But Grather was not just a ship. It was a prison, the most feared prison in the galaxy. No one escaped from Grather. No one even tried. The ship was ruled by the warden, a tall alien with soft gray skin and shining violet eyes. Her name was Vera. She wore long silver robes and moved like a shadow. But Vera's true power was not in her hands or her guards. Her power was her voice. When Vera spoke, people listened, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Her voice held a strange power. When she gave an order, the mind obeyed. It was like a spell, though no one called it magic. The scientists said it was something to do with brain waves and energy, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was this: if Vera said, "Stop," you stopped. If she said, "Kneel," you knelt. If she said, "Forget," your mind went blank. No one could break her command. No human, no alien, no machine. For many years, Vera kept peace on Grather with this power. The prisoners feared her. The guards obeyed her. Even the ships passing by sent messages of respect. Vera liked it that way. Then one day, a human prisoner named Bram arrived. Bram was brought in by mistake. His name was mixed with another in the Dominion records. The guards thought he was a rebel leader. But Bram was just a trader from a small Earth colony. He sold tools and fixed machines. He had never fought anyone. Yet, when the guards dragged him into the ship, Vera felt something strange. He did not look afraid. Bram was of average height. His hair was messy. His clothes were simple, just a gray shirt and dark pants. There was nothing special about him, but his eyes. His eyes held something Vera had not seen before: calm and a bit of humor. The guards pushed him into the warden's hall. Vera sat on her tall silver chair at the front. The hall was quiet, as always. The other prisoners stood along the sides, heads down. Vera spoke, her voice soft but sharp. "Kneel." The command echoed in the hall. The guards looked at Bram, waiting for him to fall to his knees. Bram blinked. His head tilted slightly. Then nothing. He stood, hands loose by his sides. His face showed no fear. He looked at Vera the way a person might look at a painting, curious, but not worried. The hall stayed silent. Vera's eyes narrowed. Her voice grew stronger. "Kneel." This time, the energy in her voice shook the walls. The guards took a step back, feeling the weight of her words. Even the other prisoners shivered. But Bram, he scratched his chin. And then, to everyone's shock, he chuckled. It was not a loud laugh, just a soft, easy sound, like a friend sharing a joke. A laugh. The spell broke. The strange power in the air vanished like smoke in the wind. The hall filled with whispers. The guards stared. The prisoners dared to lift their eyes. Vera stood up. For the first time in many years, her calm slipped. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice still holding that sharp edge. Bram smiled. "Just Bram," he said. "I fix things." "You are under my command," Vera said. "You should kneel." Bram shook his head, his smile soft. "Maybe your command doesn't work on me." The hall gasped. No one ever spoke like that to the warden. One guard moved forward, raising a control stick. But Vera raised her hand. "Leave him," she said. The guard froze. Vera's eyes stayed on Bram. Inside, her mind raced. This had never happened. No being had ever ignored her voice. She tried to search his mind with her power. Nothing. It was like looking into clear glass. Nothing to hold onto. How? Bram yawned a little, looking round the hall. "Nice place you've got here," he said. His voice light. Bit quiet, though. Some prisoners bit their lips, holding back smiles. The guards looked at each other, unsure. Vera felt something she had not felt in a long time. A small twist in her chest. Curiosity. She stepped down from her chair and walked toward Bram. The hall stayed silent. The soft sound of her steps echoed around them. When she stopped in front of him, she looked into his eyes. "You are not afraid," she said. Bram met her gaze without blinking. "Should I be?" he asked. Vera tilted her head. "I don't know," she said softly. "Should you?" For a moment, they stood there, the warden of Grather and the human who did not kneel. Then Bram smiled again. I guess we'll find out. Vera turned, her silver robes flowing behind her. Take him to the guest cell, she said to the guards. The guards blinked. Guest cell. Yes, Vera said. And do not touch him. Bram gave a friendly nod to the guards as they walked him away. The hall slowly emptied. But Vera stayed, thinking. For the first time in her long rule, someone had not obeyed, and instead of anger, she felt curious. Who was this human, and why did his simple laugh break her strongest spell? The guest cell on the Grather was not like the others. It had no chains, no cold walls, and no guards standing by. It was a small room with soft lights and a single chair. There was even a table with water and a piece of soft bread. Bram sat in the chair, looking around. Well, he said softly to himself, this is better than I expected. The guards who brought him there stood outside, watching him through the glass wall. They kept whispering to each other, shaking their heads. No one had ever been sent to the guest cell before. There was no such thing until today. Inside, Bram leaned back and hummed a soft tune. He wasn't sure why he had been brought here. And, honestly, he wasn't sure why the warden's command hadn't worked on him. But he wasn't afraid. Back in the warden's hall, Vera stood alone. The hall was empty now, silent except for the soft hum of the ship. She thought of Bram's face. His eyes had met hers without fear, and when she ordered him to kneel, he had laughed. She shook her head softly. This could not be. She was Vera, warden of Grather. Her voice held the power of command. The strongest minds in the galaxy had bent before her. Even mighty leaders from other worlds had obeyed her words. Yet this simple human did not. She called her assistant, a short guard named Loro. Bring him back, she said. Loro blinked. To the hall, warden. Vera nodded. Now, minutes later, Bram stood again in the hall. The guards stayed far away from him this time. Some even looked at him with wide eyes. Vera stood before him, her hands folded. I want to try something, she said calmly. Bram shrugged, a small smile on his lips. All right, she took a slow breath. This time, she would not use force. She would test him carefully. Please, sit, she said. Her voice was soft, almost friendly, but it still carried her command power. Light, like a soft touch of wind. Bram looked at the chair placed before him. He smiled and stayed standing. I'm fine, thank you, he said kindly. The soft power in Vera's voice fell apart. Her eyes narrowed. She spoke again, a bit firmer. Sit down. Bram tilted his head. I prefer standing. Again, nothing happened. The guards at the sides of the hall whispered in shock. A few even took a step back. Vera's heart gave a strange thump. She raised her hand slightly and said, in a voice filled with her full power, kneel. Her voice echoed around the hall like a wave. The guards beside her dropped to their knees at once. Even some prisoners nearby felt weak and fell to the ground. But Bram looked around at the kneeling guards and then back at Vera. Then, softly, he chuckled. A simple, soft laugh. And the power in the air broke, like glass falling to the floor. The kneeling guards blinked, looking around in confusion. The prisoners sat up, their faces filled with surprise. Vera took a step back. This was impossible. Her voice, her strongest command, had no hold on him, and when he laughed, her power vanished. Not just on him, but on everyone. She stared at him. Bram gave a friendly smile. I guess your command works better when people take you seriously. Vera opened her mouth, but no words came out. No one had ever spoken to her like this. She waved her hand, and the guards left the hall quickly, almost running. The prisoners were sent back to their cells. Only Bram remained. Vera sat down on her tall silver chair. She rested her hands on her knees and looked at him. You are different, she said slowly. Bram gave a small nod. I get that a lot. I want to know why, Vera said. Why doesn't my command work on you? Bram thought for a moment. Then he said, maybe because I don't let it. Vera frowned. No one can stop it. It's not a choice. Bram gave a soft laugh again. Maybe that's what everyone thinks, so they believe it. Vera stared. His words sounded too simple, yet they made sense in a strange way. All this time, Bram said, you've used your voice to control people, but maybe the real power is in their minds. Maybe they follow because they're afraid to say no. Vera sat back, silent. She had always believed her power was unbreakable. But was it? Or had people only followed because they thought they had no choice? Bram smiled gently. You know, back on my planet, people sometimes laugh when they're afraid. It helps break the fear. Vera gave him a long look. And you laughed at me. Bram nodded. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because it felt silly to be scared. For a moment, Vera said nothing. Then to her own surprise, she gave a small smile. I see, she said softly. Bram relaxed a little. He wasn't sure if he had won or lost this strange meeting, but he felt no danger now. Vera stood up. You may return to the guest cell, she said. No chains. No guards. Bram nodded. Thanks. As he turned to leave, Vera called softly, Bram. He stopped and looked back. I will speak with you again, Vera said. Soon. Bram gave a friendly wave. I'll be here. He walked out of the hall, whistling a soft tune. Vera watched him go, a thoughtful look in her violet eyes. For the first time in her life, her command had failed. But instead of anger, she felt curious. Who was this human? And could his simple laugh change more than just her command? Days passed on the great prison ship Grather. Normally, the days on Grather felt heavy and dark. The prisoners moved in silence. The guards spoke little. In the shadow of Warden Vera hung over everyone like a thick cloud. But now, something had changed. It started with whispers in the hallways. Stories about the human who did not kneel. Some said he was a secret agent. Others thought he had a strange power. But most believed this simple truth. Bram had faced the warden's command. And smiled. And somehow, laughed. In the guest cell, Bram stayed calm. He read old repair manuals on a screen and hummed soft tunes. The guards watched him from a distance but never came too close. They were curious and a little afraid. One morning, the door of his cell opened. It was Laura, the short guard who often worked for Vera. The warden wishes to speak with you, Laura said. Bram smiled. Again, Laura nodded. Shifting on his feet, yes, she asked kindly. Bram stood and stretched. Let's not keep her waiting. As they walked through the wide silver halls, Bram noticed something new. The guards they passed did not look away like before. Some even gave him curious glances. A few smiled a little. Something rare on G or ATH or dot. It was as if a quiet breeze of change had started to move through the ship. In the warden's hall, Vera stood by the tall window, looking out at the stars. The room was empty except for her and Bram. She spoke without turning. Why do you think laughter breaks fear? Bram walked closer and stood beside her. He followed her gaze into the deep, dark space. Because laughter makes things smaller, Bram said softly. When you laugh, you stop giving fear the power to grow. Vera looked at him. Her violet eyes were thoughtful. I have ruled with command for many years, she said. I believe it kept order. It probably did, Bram said. But maybe it also kept hearts locked up. Vera watched him for a long moment. Do you know? She said quietly, you are the first person I have ever invited here. Not as a prisoner. Bram gave a soft chuckle. I guess I broke a few rules, huh? Vera smiled, a small, gentle smile that surprised even herself. She walked back to her chair and sat down. I want to understand. Why didn't my command touch your mind? Bram shrugged. Maybe because I didn't believe it could. Vera leaned forward. But how? No one has ever fought it. Bram thought for a moment. Then he said, back on my planet. When I was young, I was afraid of the dark. I thought monsters lived there. Then one night, my older brother told me a joke about the dark. I laughed, and after that, the dark didn't seem scary anymore. Vera listened, her eyes never leaving him. Maybe your command is like that. Fear, Bram continued. It only works when people believe it's stronger than them for a long time. Vera said nothing. She sat back in her chair and stared at the soft lights above. I never thought of it that way. She whispered. Bram gave her a kind smile. Maybe people on this ship need a little laugh now and then. Might make life easier. Vera smiled. Again, a real, warm smile this time. Perhaps, she said softly. Suddenly, a loud voice sounded from the hall outside. It was a group of guards, laughing. Vera stood quickly. She walked to the door with Bram beside her. They stepped into the hallway. A group of guards stood there, watching a tall prisoner trying to balance a small metal plate on his head. While walking in a straight line, the guards were laughing softly. The prisoner smiled too. When the guards noticed Vera, they fell silent at once. The prisoner stopped walking and stood still, expecting punishment. But Vera did not raise her voice. She looked at Bram beside her. Bram gave her a gentle nod, as if saying, "It's all right." Vera turned back to the guards. "Carry on," she said softly. The guards blinked. Vera gave a small nod. "It's fine." The prisoner smiled in surprise and carefully placed the plate back on a tray nearby. The guards walked away, whispering to each other. Bram looked at Vera. That was nice. Vera gave a soft sigh. Maybe I needed to see it with my own eyes. They walked back into the hall. Vera sat down again and looked at Bram seriously. "I want to know more," she said. "About humans, about laughter, about why fear breaks when you stop feeding it." Bram nodded, sitting down in front of her. "All right, I'll tell you." And so, they talked for hours. Vera asked questions about Earth, about human ways, about how people found hope in hard times. Bram shared stories of small towns where people helped each other, of jokes told in hard moments, of smiles shared during storms. The warden of Grather, who had once ruled with sharp commands, now listened with open ears. And outside the hall, on the great ship floating among the stars, whispers grew. The guards noticed the change. The prisoners felt it too. People began to speak a little more, smile a little more. Laughter, soft and simple, started to rise in small waves across Grath or. No one shouted. No one fought, but something powerful had begun. All because one human refused to be afraid, and instead simply laughed. It started with a small sound, a soft chuckle in the engine room. Two guards were checking the power lines when one slipped on a loose wire. Instead of shouting in anger, he gave a short laugh. His partner joined him. It was nothing big, just a small laugh. But in a place like Grather, it was something new. Across the ship, the change spread, like a quiet wind that touched every corner. In the kitchen, Cook dropped a bowl and laughed at his own mistake. In the control room, a pilot made a funny face after pressing the wrong button, and the crew laughed softly. For the first time in years, Grather didn't feel like a cage. It felt letter. And at the heart of it all sat Bram, the human who had smiled when others bowed, and who had laughed when others feared. Inside the warden's hall, Vera sat with him every evening now. They talked about many things. One evening, she asked him, "Why do you think laughter spreads so quickly?" Bram smiled. "Because it reminds people they're not alone." Vera thought about his words. She had ruled Grather with power and silence. She believed fear kept order. But now, she wasn't so sure. That same evening, they walked together on the upper deck. The stars stretched around them like a sea of lights. Bram looked at Vera. "When was the last time you laughed?" Vera gave a soft smile. "I don't remember." Bram chuckled. "Then we should fix that." He told her a simple story about a boy who tried to catch the wind with a net. It was a silly story, but something in Vera's heart shifted. She smiled. Then she laughed, a soft, clear sound that echoed gently through the empty deck. Bram smiled. At that moment, Laurel came running towards them. "Warden," Laurel said, his eyes wide. "There's a problem in Section 5. Vera's face turned serious. "What happened?" Laurel spoke quickly. "A group of prisoners refused to follow orders. The guards are afraid to act. They say they don't want to use force anymore." Vera felt a strange twist in her chest. This had never happened before. She looked at Bram. He gave her a calm look. "Maybe," Bram said, They just need someone to listen. Vera nodded slowly. Let's go. They walked together to Section 5. Inside, a group of prisoners stood in a circle. Some guards stood nearby, looking unsure. Vera stepped forward. The prisoners looked at her. They waited for her command. The command that would make them drop to their knees. But she didn't speak instead. She walked into the circle and said softly, "What's wrong?" The prisoners blinked in surprise. One of them, a thin man with sharp eyes, spoke. "We're tired of being afraid. We want to be treated like people, not shadows." The others nodded. Vera stood silent. Then Bram stepped forward. "You know," he said with a smile, "I was once in a place like this, where people thought laughing was wrong. But the moment we smiled together, we stopped being strangers." The thin man looked at Bram. "We're not enemies." Bram shook his head. "Not unless we choose to be." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the thin man gave a soft laugh. "That sounds fair." The others joined him. Soft smiles on their faces. Vera watched this happen. No command, no force, just simple words and a little laughter. She turned to the guards. "No punishment. Let them return to their work." The guards nodded quickly. As the group walked away, Laurel came beside Vera. "Warden, you didn't use your voice." Vera smiled softly. "Maybe I don't need to." That night, the news of what happened in Section 5 spread like light across the ship. People began to speak more openly. Guards talked to prisoners. Jokes were shared. Smiles passed from face to face. Bram stood on the viewing deck later that evening, looking at the stars. Vera stood beside him. "You changed this ship," Vera said softly. Bram shook his head. "No, they changed it. All they needed was a little courage and a reason to smile." Vera gave him a thoughtful look. "I spent years trying to control this place with fear, and in a few days, you broke that with laughter." Bram chuckled. "Laughter is stronger than chains. People forget that sometimes." Vera looked up at the stars. "I wonder, if this ship can change, maybe I can too." Bram nodded. Anyone can. For the first time in her life, Vera felt something she had never known before. Hope. And it felt good. The next morning, something even stranger happened. A group of guards came to Vera's hall. Not with reports, but with a request. "Warden," one guard said, "we want to hold a gathering. A peaceful one, with music, and maybe some stories." Vera raised her eyebrows. "You want a gathering?" The guard nodded. "Yes, for everyone. Guards, workers, even prisoners. No commands, no punishments." Vera smiled slowly. "Then, let's have it." The gathering was held that evening in the main hall. People came, guards, prisoners, cooks, pilots. Bram stood beside Vera as soft music played. People laughed, shared food, and even danced for the first time. Grather was not a prison. It was a place where people smiled together. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth. No weapon, no command, no chain could break a heart that learned how to laugh. The gathering in the main hall became the talk of GRATH. No one could believe it. Guards sat beside prisoners. Workers shared stories with pilots. Laughter filled the air. It was a sound that hadn't touched the walls of Grather in years, maybe ever. And standing at the center of it all was Bram, the human who had taught them that fear could be replaced with something better. Hope. Warden Vera watched the crowd with quiet eyes. For so long, she had believed in command, in strict order, in silence. But now, she saw the truth. People worked better when they felt free. They smiled more when they weren't afraid. Later that evening, after the gathering ended, Vera and Bram walked along the quiet hallways. "I don't know if I've ever seen this ship so alive," Vera said softly. Bram smiled. "People aren't meant to live like shadows." Vera nodded. "I thought fear kept people together. I see now. It only kept them apart." As they walked, a young mechanic ran toward them. His name was Sen, a quiet boy with kind eyes. "Warden." "Bram," Sen called out. Breathless, Vera stopped. "What is it, Sen?" Sen held up a small tablet. "There's a message from the command station." Vera took the tablet and read it. Her face grew serious. "What does it say?" Bram asked. Vera gave him a steady look. They're sending a high officer to inspect the ship. He arrives tomorrow. Bram raised his eyebrows. Inspection. Vera nodded slowly. They must have heard about the changes here. Sin shifted nervously. Will they stop this? Vera stayed silent for a long moment. Then she spoke quietly. They'll try. The next morning, the ship buzzed with quiet worry. The name of the officer spread through the halls. Commander VORN was known across the galaxy for his strict rules and cold heart. He believed in control, in fear, in silence, exactly how Grather had been before. When Vorn arrived, the ship grew tense. He stepped off his shuttle wearing a long black coat. His sharp eyes scanned every corner of the dock. Vera met him with a calm face. Bram stood beside her. Warden Vera, Vorn said, his voice flat. I hear strange reports from your ship. Vera bowed slightly. Yes, Commander. Vorn glanced at Bram. And this is the human who broke your command. Bram smiled politely. I prefer the word changed it. Vorn gave him a hard look but said nothing. I'll inspect your ship now, Vorn said, starting with the prisoners. Vorn moved through the ship like a dark shadow. He entered the prisoner sections. But instead of fear, he saw something else. Prisoners working together, smiling. Guards helping them with tasks. Soft jokes passing between them. No one bowed in fear. Vorn frowned. He visited the control room. The pilots worked smoothly, speaking kindly with each other. The air was light, peaceful. Vorn's eyes narrowed. Finally, he entered the dining hall. There, a group of guards, workers, and even prisoners were sharing a simple meal. Someone was telling a funny story, and the whole table laughed softly. Vorn stood still. The laughter stopped when they noticed him. The hall fell silent. Vorn stepped forward. This is a prison ship, he said coldly. Not a festival. One guard stood up. It was Loro. He gave Vorn a respectful nod. With respect. Commander, this is still a prison ship, but we work better when we're not afraid. Vorn's eyes flashed. You mean you refuse to follow command? Loro shook his head. We follow, but not through fear, through choice. Vorn stared at him for a long time. Then he turned sharply and walked out. Back in the command hall, Vorn faced Vera and Bram. I see now, Vorn said coldly. You've let this ship fall into chaos. Vera stood tall. I see order here, a better kind than fear ever gave. Vorn stepped close. I could remove you from command right now. Vera met his eyes. Then do it. But know this, fear broke people apart. Choice brought them together. Bram stepped forward gently. People work harder when they care, not when they're scared. Vorn gave him a sharp look. You think a human understands command better than me? Bram gave a small smile. Maybe not, but I know laughter builds more than fear ever did. Vorn stared at them for a long time. Silence. Then Vorn gave a low hum. We'll see if your little experiment lasts. He turned and walked away. That evening, the ship held its breath. Everyone waited for Vorn's decision. Would he remove Vera? Would he punish the ship? Bram stood with Vera on the upper deck. They looked at the stars. Quiet. Then Loro came running. Warden, Bram, Loro called. Vorn. He's leaving. Vera turned. Leaving? Loro nodded, breathless. He left a message. He said, do as you wish. The galaxy will crush you soon enough. Vera gave a soft sigh. So, he's letting us be. Bram smiled gently. Maybe even Vorn saw that this works. Vera nodded, or maybe he's afraid to believe it. They stood there, watching as Vorn's ship left. Below them, Grather buzzed with soft life. People talking, smiling, sharing. The ship had changed, and no shadow could stop it now. Days passed after Commander Vorn left Grather. The ship did not return to its old ways. Instead, the change grew stronger. Prisoners worked with guards like friends. The workers sang songs during their shifts. Even the darkest corners of the ship felt lighter. Vera walked through the halls daily, no longer as a ruler, but as a leader. And Bram, he became something special to everyone. People smiled when they saw him. They asked for his stories. They listened when he spoke. Even Laurel once said, "I think the ship follows Bram more than anyone." But Bram would always laugh softly and say, "I'm just a traveler who smiled at the right time." One morning, Sin came running into the command hall. "Warden, Bram, there's a message," Sin called. Vera looked up. "From who?" Sin gave them the tablet. His hand shook slightly. "It's from the Galactic Council." Vera's eyes widened. She read the message aloud. "To Warden Vera of the ship Grather, we have received unusual reports about your ship. A special envoy will arrive within 2 days. They wish to understand these reports in person." Bram listened quietly. Vera set the tablet down. "This is bigger than Vorn." Laurel frowned. "The Council. They never send envoys unless it's serious." Sin asked softly, "What will they do to us?" Vera met Bram's eyes. Bram smiled calmly. "We'll show them what this ship really is." The next 2 days moved fast. Everyone on Grather worked together to prepare. The ship was cleaned, walls were fixed, the engines tuned. But most important, the people prepared themselves. They agreed there would be no fake smiles, no pretend games. They would show the truth, how they lived, how they worked, and how they treated each other. When the envoy arrived, the whole ship stood ready. A tall ship docked beside Grather, shining like a silver spear. From it stepped 5 figures in deep blue robes, the colors of the Galactic Council. They entered quietly. At their front was a woman named Mira, known across the galaxy for her sharp mind and strong words. Vera welcomed them with calm respect. Bram stood by her side. Mira looked around slowly. "So this is Grather," Mira said. "The ship ruled by fear, now ruled by laughter." Bram smiled lightly. "Maybe ruled by people who learned to smile." Mira's eyes stayed sharp, but she nodded once. "Show us," she said, "for ours." The envoy moved through the ship. They visited the prisoner sections, where prisoners worked freely beside guards. They walked through the engine rooms, where workers joked with each other as they fixed parts. They sat in the dining hall, where all shared food, stories, and even a soft song. At every stop, Mira asked questions. She spoke to prisoners, guards, workers, even to Loro and Sen. Finally, she stood on the upper deck with Vera and Bram as the stars stretched beyond them. Mira stayed silent for a long time. Then she spoke softly. "I thought this would be a lie. I thought I'd find tricks and false smiles." Vera asked quietly, "And what did you find?" Mira gave a small smile. "The first anyone had seen from her. I found something I never believed could exist," she said. "A place where fear is gone, and yet order remains." Bram looked at Mira. "People don't need chains. They need trust." Mira nodded. "And you gave them that." Bram shook his head. "They gave it to each other." Mira turned to Vera. "You could have fought this change. Why didn't you?" Vera looked at the stars. "Because I saw it with my own eyes. Fear breaks people. Laughter joins them." Mira stayed quiet, deep in thought. Finally, she spoke. "I will report this to the council. But I warn you, they may not accept it." Bram smiled gently. "The galaxy may take time, but hearts change faster than laws." Mira gave him a long look. "You may be right, human. You may be right." When the envoy left, the ship felt a strange mix of peace and worry. What would the council decide? Would they allow Grather to stay free, or would they force it back into fear? But Bram remained calm. As he told Vera later that night, "We showed them the truth. That's all we could do." Vera nodded. "And if they order us to stop?" Bram gave a soft smile. "Then we will choose together." The next morning, a message came from Mira. "I have sent my report. I told them exactly what I saw. I do not know what they will decide. But know this, you have changed more than just a ship. You have planted a seed in the heart of the galaxy." Vera, read the message aloud to the ship's people. When she finished, there was silence. Then someone in the crowd clapped. And another. And then the sound of many hands clapping filled the halls. It wasn't loud. It wasn't forced. It was honest. A simple show of hope. Bram stood beside Vera and whispered, "No matter what happens next, we've already won." Vera nodded, her eyes bright. "Yes, we've won something no council can take away." That night, on the quiet deck, Bram stood alone looking at the stars. Laura walked up beside him. Bram, do you think the galaxy will really change? Bram smiled gently. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But change always begins with someone who dares to smile. Laura nodded. And you were that someone. Bram looked at the stars and gave a soft laugh. Maybe. Or maybe we all are. 3 days passed after the envoy left Grather. The ship continued its life, not with fear, but with friendship. People worked hard. They smiled freely, and in every corner of the ship, Bram's laughter still echoed like a soft wind. But deep inside, everyone wondered, what would the Galactic Council decide? On the 4th morning, a message arrived. It was short. To Warden Vera and crew of Grather, the Council has reviewed the reports. You are ordered to appear before the Council chamber on planet Art. His within 7 days. Signed, Mira. Vera. Read it aloud. A quiet silence filled the hall. Sin asked softly, are they going to punish us? Laurel crossed his arms, or make us return to the old ways? Bram smiled gently. Or maybe they want to listen. Vera nodded. We'll go, and we'll speak the truth. The people agreed. They would not hide. They would not lie. Grather set its course for Arthas. 7 days later, Grather landed gently on the grand station of Arthas, the heart of the Galactic Council. Bram, Vera, Lauro, and Sen stood at the grand gate. Behind them stood many of the ship's people. They were not ordered to come. They chose to come. Mira met them at the gate. You came, Mira said with a small nod. Vera replied. We stand together. Mira looked at Bram. And you, human, are you ready to face them? Bram gave a soft laugh. I've faced worse. Like Lauro's cooking. Lauro smiled and shook his head. I'll get you for that. Even Mira smiled a little. Follow me, she said. The council chamber was a grand round hall with a high ceiling. 12 council members sat on tall seats in a circle. They wore dark blue robes, and their faces showed no emotion. Mira led the group to the center. The head counselor, a wise elder named Darnes, spoke first. Warden Vera. Human Bram, crew of Grather, you stand before us to answer a question. Vera stood tall. Yes, counselor. Darnes's voice was calm. How did a prison ship become a place of peace? Bram stepped forward. He didn't speak loudly, but his words were clear. We stopped forcing people to fear. We started trusting them. Another counselor spoke, a tall woman named Yara. Fear keeps order, she said. Without it, people fall into chaos. Bram shook his head gently. Fear may keep people in line, but trust brings them together. A soft murmur passed through the chamber. Darnes raised a hand. And what proof do you have that this works? Vera stepped beside Bram. We lived it, Vera said. On our ship, prisoners, guards, and workers stand side by side. They share work, they share meals, they share laughter. They follow the rules because they choose to. You're frowned. And what if they stop choosing? Lauro spoke up from behind. Then we remind them, with kindness. Another counselor asked, do you expect the galaxy to believe this? Bram gave a soft smile. No, we expect them to see it. For ours, the council asked questions about order, about safety, about control, into every question. Bram, Vera, and the crew answered with calm truth. Finally, the chamber grew quiet. Darnes leaned forward. I have read Mira's report. I have heard your words, but this is new. The council does not change its laws quickly. Bram nodded. I understand. Darnes looked at him closely. Why did you laugh that day, human, when no weapon, no threat, could stop you? Why did you simply laugh? Bram looked around the grand hall. Then he said softly, because laughter is a choice. And I chose to be free. In my heart, no one can break that. The chamber fell, silent, for a long moment. No one spoke. Then Darnes leaned back and gave a small nod. The next morning, a message was sent across the galaxy. The Galactic Council recognizes the peaceful order on the ship Grather. They shall be allowed to continue their new way. The Council shall observe and learn. The news spread like fire. Other ships heard it, other prisons heard it, and slowly, Other leaders began to ask questions. Could this really work? Could trust replace fear? Could laughter change the stars? Back on Grather, the crew celebrated quietly. There were no grand parties, just soft smiles, warm handshakes, and gentle words. They had done it. They had changed not just a ship, but maybe a whole galaxy. That night, Bram stood alone on the viewing deck. The stars shone brighter than ever. Vera joined him. "You spoke well today," she said softly. Bram smiled. "We all did." Vera looked at him. "What will you do now?" "Stay with us." Bram thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "For a while. Until the next smile needs sharing." Vera gave a soft laugh. "I'm glad." They stood together, watching the endless sky. The next morning, Laurel teased Bram about his speech. Sin brought him a small gift, a carved stone with the word hope on it, and the crew of Grather went on with their day. Not as prisoners, not as guards, but as people. People who had learned that laughter was stronger than fear. The end.